Welcome to the TOCA Backstage podcast. Join TOCA's Executive Director, Chris Wolf, in conversations with the artists and people behind the scenes of the Torrance Cultural Arts Foundation's performances and events.
Hi, this is Chris Wolf, Executive Director of the Torrance Cultural Arts Foundation, with another edition of TOCA Backstage. It is my extreme honor to have Ayline Artin, who's singer, songwriter, performer, recording artist, whatever. She's an amazing person and talent. Ayline, thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, sure. Thanks for having me, Christian. And you're pretty amazing yourself.
So I wanted to start off with, we first met, or you first got involved with TOCA because you had one or a couple of your students participate in South Bay's Got Talent.
That's right. It was quite a while back, in the last 7 years or so.
Yeah, and I'm curious, because you're like, how we met was because you were a vocal teacher to these students. What inspired you to get them to participate in South Bay's Got Talent?
Well, part of probably the biggest thing that I teach when I'm teaching voice lessons is self-confidence, self-worth, and just having taking risks. And South Bay's Got Talent was just a great platform for them to be able to experience taking a risk and, pushing themselves as far as how confident they're going to feel about themselves. And, I just pushed that. It had nothing to really do with making the show. It had a lot to do with actually going through the motions of, being a part of such a great event. And I think we were surprised by so many who did so well. And I saw this change in these kids as each year, more and more kids were participating. And in the end, it was an experience for them, whether they made it or didn't make it. Each one had their own special experience. So what made me, to answer your question, get them to do this was because I work on a lot of self-confidence using your voice, not just on stage, but off stage as well. And this was just a great opportunity for me to do that with them.
That is amazing. It's funny because you bring up the need of self-confidence. I do recall back many moons ago when I was in junior high school, I wanted to audition for the school musical, and I have like no sense of musicality in me whatsoever, but my friend said, "Oh, you can do it, just go and audition and just be enthusiastic." So I went in there and I was enthusiastic as could be. And what was funny was I made the show and he didn't, but I guess because I was very enthusiastic. But I know what you mean, that self-confidence plays a lot into performing and just being, I guess, a human being.
Yeah.
You need that.
Yeah, and we don't know how much self-confidence we have until we're really put in situations, One of the other ways that I would prep them to put themselves in the situation is visualize themselves actually being there. And because that helps a lot. We have sight, but it's a one thing to have sight and to have vision. So I try to help them visualize the whole experience of, feeling it. But again, we really don't know our limits until we're put in that situation. And then, I always tell them, if you fall, so what? How many people can say are doing what you're doing? Not many. How many people can say they would like to? Many,
Right. No, that's very true. And it's funny because we always we've tried from the very beginning to make it a very friendly and safe environment.
Yes.
And I think, I think one of the things that kids need to know when they audition or when they perform in this or any other competition is the the people who are judging you want you to do well. They're
Hmm.
like they're your biggest fans at the time because it's it's always so wonderful to, I mean, when some of your kids came up and just sang and blew us away, it was like, yay, we found some great talent. Yay, we're so proud. Um, so yeah, that I think that's really important to remember. So what tell me, how did you get into being the vocal coach extraordinaire that you are?
Oh gosh. It all started, gosh, I was taking vocal lessons. I started taking vocal lessons. I'm going to try to like really compress this story because this is a whole other podcast. But I started taking vocal lessons because I was singing a lot on my own. Just I started singing after the birth of my kids because I wanted to teach them what to do. What I wanted them to do what they love in life. And I thought, how can I teach them that if I'm not? So I went and bought a guitar, taught myself how to play, started doing farmers markets, blah, 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 blah. I was doing a lot of singing. And I realized a friend of mine said, you need a vocal coach because I started losing my voice. And I thought there was something wrong with me. And after working under Charlie Gavoyan, who's a very, popular, renowned classical singer, and his teacher, Edward, was the student of Caruso. And Caruso, if you know, is like the Pavarotti back then.
Right.
So it's Caruso's teachings handed down to Edward, who was handed down to Charlie, who's handed down to me. So I have this classical background, and Charlie has many students, but he said, if you ever decide to teach vocal lessons, you better do it. And I said, what? Me be a vocal coach? I don't. He goes, no, 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 you don't understand. He goes, I've been teaching this for years, and there's nobody who gets it like you do. So I was asked by Sterling's grandmother. You remember Sterling?
Mhm.
She was my very first student. Sterling was 14. I think she's now 24, doing great in college, by the way. Still keeps in touch with me.
Nice.
And her grandmother asked me, when he said, when are you going to teach Sterling vocal lessons? I'm like, I'm not a vocal coach. She's like, you have to teach. So I went back to Charlie. I said, guess what? Somebody asked me. He's like, did you do it? And I said, no. He goes, are you crazy? You have to do it. So it started with obviously me saying, finally, I said yes. 2 months later, she sent me her other granddaughter, Sierra, which who I still keep in touch with, who's now 22. And I think something roughly like that. And then from Sterling, Sierra, I had her sister, and then that was it. People found out because Sterling was doing auditions and Sierra was singing, and it's like, oh, you sing, yeah, you should meet this lady. I never once advertised that I teach vocal lessons ever. Till this day, I don't even advertise it. I started putting something on Facebook just recently about vocal life lessons. But that was after COVID, trying to do this Zoom thing.
Sure.
But that's how it all started. It started from Charlie telling me I should do it, and then Sterling's grandmother, and then just by word of mouth, I went from literally, I manifested 3 students to 30 students in less than 4 months. I had all these students. And the reason I said yes the first time was because Charlie said I should. But from that, I was getting this second income because I was a special ed teacher, which by the way, this year I resigned. We'll get into that. I was a special ed PE teacher. And this income from teaching the vocal lessons, I was able to use towards my album, creating this. And we can talk about that later. But I'm also a songwriter, a singer, and I do all my music and lyrics on my own, and I have a great producer, but it paid for my album and all the studio sessions and everything you can possibly think of. I worked on that for 2 years. And that's how it started. It's just,
Wow.
you never know what you're going to get into unless you take that risk and push yourself. So I never thought, and it was a self-confidence thing for me, can I not? But once I did it and I saw the results and I saw how I was changing the lives of these kids, It was so rewarding. I can't even explain to you. It's so rewarding.
Yeah, because Sterling was, I remember her from South Bay's Got Talent, and I think she did a couple other things with us and before she went off to college. And uh, talented young woman. All your students have been, I mean, they can't have, I think all the students that we saw that you brought, made it into the show pretty much. And I mean, I don't remember who, there's been so many, I don't remember who won or who didn't, but I know they all did really well, and all the
Yes.
judges had, favorable things to say about them. So, nice segue. So I do, those who may be watching this may recognize you from one of the things you did for TOCA during the pandemic when we were shut down was you performed a live stream concert for us that was really well received. I think it got, some of the most views that we had. Um,
Awesome.
did But one of the things I didn't know about you, I know you played guitar and piano and were a vocal coach. I didn't know you were also a songwriter, and I knew you sang because I knew you once sang a duet with one of your students. But you're also, I mean, let's just, I guess the easiest way to put it is like you're a rock star, basically. I mean, that the show that you did for us was pretty rocking, but you wrote a lot of those songs, right?
I wrote all of those songs, music and lyrics. Yeah.
Well, I do recall you doing one that was a Fleetwood Mac song, so I'm not going to give you
Oh,
credit for that
darn it. Well, I just say that I wish that was one that I did right.
one. Yeah, because you did a really good job on that one. So where do you find your inspiration when you write songs?
All of my music is about love. It's about love for my wife, love for my life, and love for my, this passion that I have for music. And it's about the journeys of, my experiences of all three of those things. But most of my album is, I would say is about, my wife, and she inspires me. I was a very late bloomer in songwriting. Like I said, is that confidence thing, which is why I instill that in my students, because I wish I had someone like me growing up. I really do. I think my life would have been different. However, I love my life. I wouldn't change a thing. And if, you know, I would do it the same, because I ended up with my wife. We have three beautiful daughters. I've touched so many lives. And now I'm just trying to do something else, which is finally living that rock star life of, pursuing my album. But like I said, most everything is from personal experiences, really. And that is, mostly the relationship of my wife. Some of the stuff are fabricated, like the song Heaven and Hell. That's a little fabricated, that's a little overboard. But, it's fun to do. My wife actually helped me write that song, some of the lyrics on that. But it's inspired from just that fire and desire within. I'm 52, but I really feel like I'm 22, and I feel like there's so much more to my life and so much more out there that I still want to do and give. And so that's what keeps me going. And I'm still writing. I mean, I could have released a double album if I wanted to. And there's 13 tracks on this song, which is unusual. Most albums are 9 to 10 tracks, but we really had to pull back and not release everything. But I'm already ready with the next album. I'm just trying to get this one out there. But yeah, I would say I'm inspired by loves of life.
So if somebody wanted to get the album, or I mean, is it available on iTunes? Is it how do people get it?
Well, it's right now. I have a couple singles on iTunes and Spotify and all those other major platforms, digital platforms. 2 singles that I dropped from the album. One is Heaven and Hell, which is actually also the title of the album, and we have a music video of. And the other one is Golden Wings. But the album itself, titled Heaven and Hell, will be out November 18th, so just less than a month away. People can pre-order it now if they wanted to. Just go to my website at aylineartin.com. And there's a pre-order digital download for the album. Again, that'll drop on November 18th, but they'll have first access to it. And of course, if they, do the social media thing of follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Ayline Artin, they could stay up to date with what's going on with the album.
Now, one thing I have a confession to make. When I first met you and you were performing with your students, most of the stuff they did and most of the stuff I saw you do was kind of folksy, bluesy, or poppy. And then when you came out to do that live stream video, it was like pure rock star. What is your sort of your favorite niche? Is it rock and roll? Is it pop? Is it, what do you have like a favorite?
Definitely, I love all types of music, honestly. But what I do is it's more of a classic rock, I would say, alternative, modern classic rock, like a neoclassic rock album. Golden Wings to me is much more commercialized, and it's kind of has that poppy edge. But yeah, if you like rock and roll music, classic rock and roll music, you're gonna love this album.
Awesome. And are you back to? I know that you performed at when it was St. Rock. Are you doing live performances again?
Yeah, my next live performance is at on December 11th. It's kind of like an album release party, but just the next big show of the full album on December 11th at the Venice West. And I believe they used to run St. Rock.
Yeah, that used to be
Yeah.
St. Rock, right?
Yeah, yes. And that's out off of Lincoln Boulevard and, Venice area.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
So thinking of your students and kids, if somebody came to you and said, I really want to like pursue being a musician or a performer, what words of wisdom would you give them?
Do it.
Do it?
Do it. Yeah, absolutely do it. First I would ask them, what are their goals are with doing that, but is it really their passion? And I would just tell them, you are Christian, I am, we are truly the masters, the captains of our own ship. I think and my students will tell you, if you sat with any of my students, I can guarantee you they will tell you the same thing, that this is what I teach. Because I've had many people, non-student people come up to me and ask me, and then months later I'll get a call or a text from them saying, you changed my life. And I said, really? How? Why? And it was because, I get people to see that the only limits and obstacles we have are the ones we put on ourselves. The same, the person who says they can and the person who says they can't, guess what? They're both right. Because if you believe you can't do something, you're just, you're not going to have that feeling of happiness to want to do it and take those action steps. It takes hard work. It's not just about visualizing the end result and being there. No, one has to visualize themselves taking the steps to get there as that journey. But I would say, start singing, just do anything that you can, go to farmers market, make the cold calls. Nobody did anything for me. I do everything on my own right now. So if there's any managers or agents out there who want to grab me first, you're more than welcome to do that. But I do it all. I self-promote, I self-market, I do it all.
So actually, I do know that some agents and managers do watch this. So just a clue, if you reach out to me, I will get you Ayline's contact.
Very cool.
Yeah. But that, it's funny because I ask that question of everybody that we do this, because as you know, TOCA that's sort of one of our things, is we like to encourage young performers. And I think that was one of the best responses I've ever heard.
Awesome. So that makes me so happy.
Because you're right. I mean, and I know I've heard that sort of that saying before, that those who say they can and those who say they can't, they're both right. I think it's very true, and I think that like with South Bay's Got Talent, it's just, you just got to try it, and say you're going to do it and do it.
You have to you have to go in there accepting that it's just an experience, you know, and whether you make it or you don't make it, it's still an experience. Nobody can take that away from you. There's nothing more empowering than you making the decision to do something. You know, whether you succeed or you don't succeed, it's still an experience that's going to get you to the next step, which is a step up forward. So I try to, you know, really drill that into just not just my students, but anybody who asks me about it. Because like I said, you know, I want to do everything that I possibly can dream of while I'm here in this body during this time of life. And so yeah, I'm happy that I hope that that answer resonates with people, because I always want to leave people with this impression of increase. You know, that's my goal, and that's what I hope to do with my music, is to save and change lives and just always leave an impression of increase to live a better life.
Well, you're doing it, and you're sharing, sharing the joy with people, and we appreciate it, and we appreciate you bringing, letting your students know about South Bay's Got Talent. And I encourage people to check out your new album coming out in November.
Thank you.
So it's they can go to your website. We'll put a title card on here with your website,
Sounds
so
good.
people can access it. And if you are interested in South Bay's Got Talent, the deadline for audition applications is January 23rd. And auditions are February 5, 6, and 7, and the show is on February 25th. And Ayline, thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me, Chris. It's so nice to see you again, and I enjoyed speaking with you, and I just a pleasure to be here.
Nice. Well, we look forward to your album, and hopefully we'll see you in person soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.